Hi, long time no see. It's been a while since I filmed, obviously. If you have been following my channel previously, you do know that already. It's been months since I actually sat down in front of the camera and talked about anything at all. Instead of sort of returning saying, hi, I'm back, let's talk about lipstick, I felt like I really couldn't do that. Not that my absence really made a big difference on YouTube at all, but I do want to touch on something that I think is quite universal at this point in time, at this point in our history. In the very beginning of the pandemic, things were kind of out there. Had to get ourselves together pretty quickly because as a physician, you can't show a crack. At the time where there's a health crisis, it turns out people rather rely on you to be the rock in their health journey. I really couldn't process personally what the world was dealing with. What I would say, and I'll unfold the thought, but I would say that what changed is the optics through which I view everything, which sounds like a big deal. The understanding of reality, your place in this reality, and the fragility of this reality is astonishing, and I can't believe I have not felt all of the weight of it until now. But I think that's, again, not exclusive to me, but it's true for a lot of people, especially people who are extremely goal-oriented. They set a goal and they achieve it no matter what. And step A leads to step B, leads to step C. Perhaps you take a detour, but then you're still building on whatever's going on in your life. And it seems like a tunnel. So definitely I see now that I had very much a tunnel vision regarding my life and my place in it. I think there were a couple of things that were turning points for me and triggers to turn the tunnel into maybe more of a cone, where one has a little bit more of a wide frame view, where complicated issues become more and more complicated until it's a convoluted bowl of trouble and problems and misunderstandings and hurt. The pandemic itself really brought that out into the open, and the insecurity of our situation at all times. So my profession had to regroup very quickly, and there wasn't really time or space for personal processing. And for instance, as a pilot, if there is a problem with the plane engine, is not allowed to freak out and is not allowed to find themselves in a place where they can't perform their duties. Well, that's my profession right now. The engine is burning, and we are hoping and trying to land this thing somewhere in the water where we can have some survivors. This is the feeling that I had in the beginning of the pandemic. I mean, things have changed a lot because in the beginning of the pandemic, we really didn't have a lot of information to go by, and out of a million different possibilities, it seemed that the worst one seems to have happened for several steps of the way. So in the beginning of the pandemic, it was a lot of confusion, a lot of reconfiguration of what professionally is happening, ethically what should be happening. And so that probably put personal processing of the horror that is a global pandemic far and onto the back burner, where I wasn't going to deal with it right away, and I was just going to deliver what I could in terms of care to the population, which was scared. I do serve lots of older people with chronic health conditions, and the amount of anxiety, mood problems, and just overall devastation that people in general had, the measure of it, which was like, say, at a 4 most of the time, all of a sudden went past 10. And it's still happening, and the aftermath of what happened is going to be apparent for decades, I think. Obviously, that kind of hits you like a brick in the face. You do the best you can with what you've got and try to sort through what's going on however you can. The personal processing of this was stunted. And if you have heard, I'm not sure if you've heard in the media, but not too long into the pandemic, where I live, Nova Scotia, had a shooter, which isn't, if you know what Nova Scotia looks like, isn't something that you would expect. It's a quite sleepy province. It's not the most bustling or wealthy province of Canada. So let's go to the shooting. There was a shooter, and mathematics is close to 20 people had been shot, had died. And the nonsensical nature of this crime is baffling and will never be unraveled, simply because the person who did the shooting decided he was not going to be ready to face the consequences. And once he was cornered, he didn't hesitate to end his own life to avoid, I guess, the consequences of his actions. It's very difficult to guess what goes on in the mind of a person who commits a travesty like that. And it happened not too far from where I'm actually living, where my house is, where my child is, where my family lives. That really played as a trigger for me. And by trigger, I mean that really, really, for a lot of us around here, ruined this illusion of safety, this illusion of reasonable stability. A crazy psycho can just appear. Nothing is up to you in that situation. So the person who was the shooter, from what I understand, purchased a police car or somehow outfitted it completely to look like a police car. He got his hands on actual police uniform. He outfitted himself and decided to go on a shooting spree. First, there was some people he knew that he had attacked. And then it was random strangers on the highway who he would have stopped. There was an honorable policewoman with a family who lost her life. The whole situation was unbelievable and terrifying because, again, the shooter would enter people's houses, people he didn't know. This could happen to any of us. Any of us could be in this situation at any given moment. It takes away, robs us of something that is extremely important, and that has to do with stability and feeling of security that is just not there. And there wasn't a piece of my brain that could fathom making videos again, especially making videos about frivolous things. Since then, I think the situation in my immediate vicinity in my province had settled down quite well. I'm really grateful that from a pandemic point of view, the situation of our little province is actually very encouraging. That is to say, not a lot of people at any particular point in history probably think that their government is doing a great job. Necessarily, there's always complaints about how things are managed. I am in awe and impressed about how our little province, politically, medically, how our little province handles so far the pandemic situation. It is baffling to me that we somehow did not descend into chaos and things are actually fairly stable where I live specifically. So there is hope and there is light at the end of the tunnel, so to say, and understanding that obviously, although things are really terrible, they could be more terrible, and sometimes there are people who make the correct decisions and are helpful rather than harmful. That is good to know. And it is good to restore some of the trust for authorities. Because right now, the only thing that's stable is instability. I mean, there's some pretty terrifying statistics coming out of the States right now. And the terror started 4 years ago and it's still not over right now. Now, there's hope that it will be very soon, but not yet. The economical situation is just crumbling. It's okay to find escape. It's okay to try and think of something else. It's okay to distance yourself from those things because a lot of those things we can't control and can't do anything about. And thinking constantly about how terrible things are going is not going to make things better. In fact, it is just going to make things worse for you specifically, for me specifically, whoever. So I guess the bottom line is a few things really set me back in terms of my view of reality and understanding of it. And when I say set me back, really I mean set me forward, because I do think that the optics that I have right now are much more realistic and probably accurate. So that I'm grateful for as well. Let's call it growth. But right now I feel finally a little bit more ready to return to some form of escapism, some form of stepping away from reality and more into the cyber world of something fun and pleasant and lighthearted and frivolous. And for me, that is this. And right now, my feeling is that I want to foster joy within myself and hopefully be able to share some of it. I do see my videos getting a little more chatty and probably a little bit more, personal, because that's what I've been into watching. I've been really more interested in connecting with a YouTuber on perhaps an intellectual and an emotional level rather than going for production value of the channels that I watch. So for me, I think obviously perfume is my first passion, and that's where I'm going to focus at this point. Change is fine, change is good, growing up is good. Sometimes it happens in little increments and it's nice and gentle, and sometimes not so much. So let's call it a wrap. Do tell me if you had a similar experience in the last 6 months, if you also feel like things have changed a lot for you and you cannot go back to seeing the world the same way as you did 6 months ago. I would be interested to hear how your experience has been. I'm probably not being very articulate about getting the point across. I didn't feel like taking a big break and then immediately just going in a slightly different direction in terms of content and delivery. So this is kind of a bridge from there to here. So that's it for today. I hope you have a good day. Take care of yourselves. Take care of others around you. Be responsible with the choices that you make regarding wearing masks, washing hands, and the rest of it. Good luck, and see you soon. Bye-bye.